Coming up on this episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover.
I feel like Josh McDaniels can't operate as a human being unless he's wearing a New England top.
Welcome back to Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. We pick up our division preview series as we take a look at the AFC East. We've got a fantastic guest joining us. Shane Brennan from the Irish NFL Show is returning after his appearance on Mastermind. He's a big New England Patriots fan, so he'll give us the inside scoop on what's been going on in Foxborough and also delve a little into what's been going on the wonderful island of Ireland in this very exciting year for American football. In Ireland, I'm always joined by Joe and Byron. Gentlemen, AFC East. Looking forward to this one?
Yeah, interesting division, I think. A lot of changes in New York. Bill's the leader of the division. A lot of changes in New England as well, and Miami we'll get to.
Yeah, not a lot of positivity around Miami, I don't think, from the three of us, but we will dig into them. Joe, how are you feeling about the AFC East? We're on the other side now. We've only got 4 to go.
Yes, it's one of them divisions where there's a clear favourite. There's not many of them in the division, but yeah, like Ryan said, there's some interesting teams where, somewhere it might be slightly too early on their turnaround, but yeah, we'll wait and see another intriguing division where, yeah, who knows what will happen. So we'll obviously dive in and give our expert opinion on all things AFC East.
Who's the expert?
Well, I guess obviously.
Yeah, Shane, yeah. Speaking of Shane, let's get to him. We'll kick off the episode with looking at the New England Patriots. So here's us with Shane Brennan. Kicking off our AFC East preview, we've got a guest that's going to be talking to us about the New England Patriots. It's returning guest Shane Brennan from the Irish NFL Show. Shane, welcome back to Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. Less pressure on this appearance, I think, than last time.
Yes, talk about the New England Patriots instead of Al Michaels, even though I wasn't fully expecting to talk about Al Michaels because of my own mistake in the lead up to the Mastermind episode. I feel a bit more in my comfort zone today, so maybe make myself a bit less of a fool until we start getting to the season predictions. Then I really go mad.
So you were great. You were great in the Mastermind episode, so don't worry about that, Shane. But it's a pleasure to have you back on. Of course, one of the hosts of the Irish NFL Show. Shane, the 2025 season is a huge year for the game for NFL in Ireland. So many things to look forward to. But what have you guys got coming up on the Irish NFL Show as we kind of head into the new season?
I think July is a weird time when you're covering American football just in general, because you're kind of, I guess you're trying to find talking points, trying to find ways to do things, but also you're spending so much time planning ahead for the season. So like a lot of our energy has been trying to planning out as to what we're doing when the Steelers play against the Vikings in Croke Park on the 4th Sunday of September. So, but whilst doing that, I mean, in fairness to the guys and between us, and we're a team of 7. In fairness to us, we're a growing and strong unit. We've been managing to sort of break down podcasts, looking back on the top 10 games, looking back on some Super Bowls, which we remember, which I guess is nice kind of light conversation topics compared to some of the NFL media guys who are still sort of trudging through the top 5 head coaches that are on the hot seat stuff in July. I'm like, that's fair enough, but I feel like we've kind of gone over that. Kind of funny though that when we did our top 10 NFL games in recent memory, not ever, but like in our lifetimes, I think 3 Super Bowls that involved the Patriots were on the list, and I didn't put a single one on. The rest of the guys were like, well, these are obviously the best. So I was like, I felt like I was able to sit back in that show. But no, like I can't in my professional life as well. I work as a journalist where I do some American football stuff, but it's not kind of my main wrap. And I can't go anywhere without somebody sort of passing a comment or showing excitement for the NFL. Even people who don't follow American football, American sports, people probably don't even follow sports at all. There's something that's really capturing the imagination of this event coming to Croke Park. It's the smallest market that the NFL has ever played in. Dublin is probably one of the smallest cities that the NFL has played in. I know Frankfurt is probably technically smaller, but if you think of that stadium was outside, like I went there to see the Patriots play the Colts a couple of years ago. It's outside, whereas Croke Park is going to be, was at one point the 3rd biggest stadium in Europe, but it's in a city of 1 million people. It's, it's smaller than Liverpool, for example. And it's going to completely take over the city. It's already taken over our minds and our hearts. And just to be a part of it and to have something to really look forward to is it's a special time in Ireland, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's ace. It's going to be such a good event, and Dublin are going to do an incredible job of hosting the NFL and welcoming people as the city always does. I'll be there. Sadly, I'm somewhere else for the game. I'm going to be in Sweden, so I'm going to miss that trip. But I'm going to be there for the college game again in a few weeks' time. So very much looking forward to that. Always a great time at the Aviva for the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. So yeah, very much looking forward to visiting Dublin again, and just gutted not going to be there for the Steelers Vikings game, but. Just the way it fell. Shane, where can we follow? Where can we watch and listen to the Irish NFL show?
Yeah, well, the Irish NFL shows were the best place to go if you want our podcast content. We're on YouTube as well, at IRE NFL on Twitter, and I think we're just at Irish NFL Show on Instagram. You'll follow most of our stuff there. We're becoming a bit more active on our social media side. You'll probably see more of our hot takes being sort of taken either in context or out of context. If you want to, feel free to abuse us in the comment section. I think we deserve it sometimes. But yeah, if anyone wants to find us, and I think what we tried to do as well is we tried to really be an NFL show for NFL fans, but we tried to be accessible as well. One of our team members is based in the US, and he gives his perspective, and it's always, but he does it in a way that for those of us who don't follow college football 12 weeks of the year, we're able to learn it. So I think for what we're trying to do, as I'm sure what you guys are trying to do as well, is try to keep things accessible, because we want more people to be involved in this fantastic thing that we love. So if anyone wants to give us a shout, just because we say Irish on the front doesn't mean we don't welcome any listeners from the UK, Sweden, America, Mars, doesn't matter. Come in.
Yeah, excellent. Go give Shane and the guys a follow and listen. It's a great listen. It's in my rotation for sure. So yeah, go give the Irish NFL show a listen and a watch. Shane, let's get to business of the New England Patriots. That's of course why we're here. Let's just jump straight into the headlines, and I'm going to be working the screen as I mentioned before. Let's see if we can do it smoothly. That one too bad. Headline number one for the Patriots. Patriots order more beef, less mayo. Kraft turns to family and brings in Ring of Honor inductee Mike Vrabel in as head coach. Signals a culture reset and a return to hard-nosed football. Yeah, Shane, how did you kind of feel about the sort of the move? Jared Mayo was only lasted the year, and then moved to Vrabel, who's certainly one of my favorite coaches in the NFL.
Yeah, I've with Jerome Mayo, I've kind of traveled the whole emotional roller coaster, because I was fully expecting and advocating for Mike Vrabel to be made head coach when Bill Belichick left at the end of the 2023 season. It didn't happen. Jerome Mayo comes in. A lot of us, including the Boston media, especially for anybody who spent any time over in that part of America, they're tough. They find they're tough, and they're spoiled rotten, and they find ways of nitpicking. But they didn't up on very early to the fact that Jerome Mayo effectively skipped a step to get into the position that he's in. He was never a coordinator before he became head coach. So I sort of sat back and I took it in, and I tried to understand what it was that Kraft and Belichick saw in Mayo. And I was really impressed at his early press conferences, and I thought he was the right man. I felt like he could bring a culture shift, which I felt like the team needed at a time when you could visibly see Mac Jones just crushed as a human being, as we saw again in that game in Frankfurt. When Mac Jones came in, I genuinely wanted to give him a hug. I was like, it's obviously something not happening right in the way that this Patriots team is run, and here's a man who might be able to change the way things are talking. But by the time we get to when the Patriots played in Wembley last year against the Jacksonville Jaguars, you could really feel things starting to change, and the naivety of Gerard Mayo was becoming clear. The naivety in the media, naivety in preparation for the game, naivety, I think, and as well as his brother, Jerome Mayo, is a strength and conditioning coach, is somebody who is still on the payroll, by the way, but I don't think it's been given enough scrutiny, because the further that the Patriots got into that season, the more and more tired they played. The worse they had got in terms of recovering after games, bringing the energy that they brought in the first 2 or 3 games of the season. They just looked like a bunch of lads who had been playing every Thursday and every Sunday as if they were in the Europa League, which is, of course, not the way it is. We only had one Thursday night game. We got hammered by the Jets last year. So by the time we get to the end of the season, and again, the Boston media thing, and we're all like, oh, he skipped a step. He's obviously not ready for this. Everyone had come to the same conclusion, but nobody had really expected the Patriots to move as quickly as they did. And I think they were very smart in moving as quickly as they did. I think Gerard Mayo knew before that final game against the Bills that he was gone. But I think they sort of let him play out the season and then cut him loose within hours. And that ruthlessness might seem cold, but was by far the right thing to do. And to bring in Mike Vrabel, and I was sure we might talk about later, Josh McDaniels in the defensive coordinator role as well. I think it is the right move for the right time. Now, do I like the fact that they keep coming back to people who are coming from inside the Patriots school of thinking? Not always, because the Patriot way, as again, I will discuss this later on if we talk about Josh McDaniels, but the Patriot way has not worked anywhere anybody has tried to recreate it. Not even in New England, unless Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are both in the same building. And they tried with Gerard Mayo, keeping somebody who was in-house, felt like they could bring some sort of Patriot way, but maybe change the culture a little bit. Mike Vrabel is obviously from that school of thought. The only positive thing is that obviously he has spent time outside the building. He's cut his nose as a head coach in the AFC South, in the Tennessee Titans, in an organization who I don't think are as well run as the New England Patriots. And I don't mean that as too negative of a slight for Tennessee, but I think their priorities are different to the Kraft's priorities. So maybe, so for me, having Vrabel there is a nice balance between what the Krafts obviously want, which is our style, our people, our way, and somebody who at least has some experience from elsewhere that might be able to bring in something different, a different perspective that can change New England culture in a way that is living in the 2020s, because so they're not just living in the 2 decades that we have dominated. Because it's very easy, and we see this in so many other sports, it's very easy to, when you do something well in a certain period of time, to just keep trying to run it back. And it never works as the world moves on. So I'd be interested to see how it really plays out on the field.
Yeah, I think there was a moment, especially I can't remember if it was after the Jaguars game at Wembley or not, but where Gerard Mayo publicly called out his team for being soft. That's that naivety you talked about. Yeah,
I was sitting the distance from here. I was sitting about 6 feet away from when he did that, and he came up and goes, "Where's the soft football team?" And you could hear all the Boston media guys used to getting absolutely stonewalled, nothing from Bill Belichick for years, all audibly moving forward in their chairs. They were like, "What did he say? He said that now? He was right." And what he was trying to do there was get a reaction. And the following week we went out and beat the Jets. But just in terms of like what I expected from Gerard Mayo and what we got in that moment were two completely different things.
Yeah, feels like that's something that if he thinks that's something that needs to be said behind and kept behind closed doors. And I agree. I sort of agree. Maybe that's right. That they were, the Patriots were a soft football team, which surprised me because I was expecting them, especially with Mayo, to change. How does Vrabel go about changing that? I think is the question I'm trying to get to, because it's a big change. It's not easy to get away from being a soft football team.
2 words: no excuses. I felt like too much at too many different points of last season. There was, but we're still trying to, we're not quite sure what we're doing our quarterback, or, the running game was going, but just we're still trying to find a way to do this. Or, sometimes there was a sense, I guess, and Gerard, I think up until the end of October got given some leeway from the public and from the fans, because we knew that what he was handed off by Bill Belichick in terms of a squad was not good. It was terrible. It was one of the worst, like in terms of the squad depth and quality there. Offensively was one of the worst in the league, and defensively they hadn't taken a step forward. And if you stay still, you're going to eventually move backwards. And we saw that as the season went on. So I think this year, the attitude has to be, we have our quarterback. We know what we can do defensively. We have a coaching setup which is experienced and has been successful. There are no excuses anymore. And I think that even in the mentality of the players, and you see the way that some of them were cashing it in at certain points of December. I remember listening to Boston. I sometimes listen to Boston sports radio. If you've never done it, by the way, listen to Boston sports radio after the Patriots lose. It's a bunch of guys who you imagine like these Peter Griffins sitting in their house in Rhode Island, who've been on the beer since about 12:30, and they get to about 6:00 and they're just angry, and they get on the phone and yelled on the phone for about 2 hours. And it's the funniest Funniest show on radio. It's one of the best parts about the Patriots losing games is listening to that. But one point that they kept coming back to is they really felt that the connection with the jersey and the hard work ethic of New England football was completely lost at the end of last year. And that can't happen unless either the culture allows it or players are just decided that you're going to cash it in or check or, just sort of keep playing for the paycheck and try to find somewhere else next year. This year, the mentality is no excuses. We can make the playoffs. And if you're not tough enough, hit the road.
Yeah. Have there been signs? Because obviously it's been, we haven't seen them play yet, of course, but it's been 7 months or so since Vrabel has come in and has been in the building. Are there signs from kind of what you're seeing and what you're hearing, Shane or Byron as well? Are you getting the feeling that Vrabel is starting to change things? Hard to say for sure without seeing them on the field, but.
So I'll defer to Byron.
Go on, Byron, after you, sorry. There's a bad
Sorry,
question.
I'll keep myself muted. No, I haven't really seen much, I must say. I think it's been a quiet, drama-free off-season in New England, which is generally a good thing. And generally, that is the New England way, isn't it? Other than Stephon Diggs handing out candies on a boat. But that got pushed away and dealt with. He was back in training.
Sour Patch Kids.
Something like that, yeah. Don't touch them, kids. Yeah, he was back in training. And he looked pretty good coming off an ACL, Stephon Diggs. So, yeah, I haven't seen anything as yet to indicate where they're going. But I think you just kind of know what you're going to be getting from Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels in terms of, like, maybe not as a head coach, but Josh McDaniels in his role is like, this is a professional organization. This is a professional setup. And if Mike Vrabel does want to call someone soft, I think one of the bigger things is like, he has the skins on the wall. Like he has a track record. He's been there and he's done it, not just as a player, but as a head coach as well. He had the Titans as the #1 seed. Lest we forget that players will take notice of that. Jared Mayo says it and you think, buddy, you've coached 6 head coaching games and we're not doing well. Like maybe you shouldn't be the one here taking shots and your brother's the conditioning coach. Like,
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I think it's been a remarkably quiet offseason in terms of what we've gotten from inside the camp, which is again probably a sign that Vrabel is trying to rebuild some of the tight-lippedness of the Belichick era. Because, like, again, there are other teams in other sports where you get plenty of feed out of the camp as to how things are going on. Like I'm sure once Aaron Rodgers, the longer he goes into the Pittsburgh, the more we will hear from that about how all the players are going to say he's absolutely awesome, which is a cover for the fact that he absolutely isn't. You know what I mean? Whereas in Patriot land, again, other than the Stephon Diggs incident, if you can call it that, which was more of a thing that just blows up because, again, what else have we to talk about in the middle of June? And also, it's kind of with Cardi B, he's on about Miami. It's kind of funny, to be fair.
It's great, yeah.
But even in how he responded to that, I mean, like he could have gone too hard and sort of say that's not what we want. But he let him back into the building. He let him try and rebuild his credibility as a Patriot football player. Yeah. And then by the end of the week, you got a sense of Stephon Diggs. Okay, he's here to work. He's here to work. So that's the only thing that we've really gotten that we can read from is how Vrabel and co have dealt with that situation, and I think they've dealt with it fairly professionally.
Yeah. Excellent. Let's have a move on to headline number 2. The Matrix Reloaded, Drake ready to go. So quarterback Drake May showed flashes in his rookie season. Have the Patriots done enough on offense, though, to help him take the next step in year 2? What did you make of kind of how Drake May went last year, and what are you hoping to see from him this year, Shane?
Oh, I adore Drake May already. Now, am I drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit? Am I, just refusing to acknowledge the fact that sophomore slumps are a thing, as Houston Texans fans will be able to attest to, and Washington Commanders fans are currently praying will not happen? Yeah, probably a little bit. But I think what was impressive about Drake May is the fact that he impresses in situations which he probably should not have been able to impress in. The great touchdown against the Tennessee Titans. Now, that was a game that we lost, but being able to scramble the play, he'd no right to make that play because he had so much time on the ball, so much pressure. My big thing with him, and the big thing I'm just like, Jesus Christ, don't do that, is a lot of times when he has the ball, he goes running with it, which is a great skill, but he won't slide. He will go shoulder first or head first. And we're not talking about it because he hasn't got injured, but I don't want to have the next Tua Tagovailoa on the New England Patriots. And that is an area of his technique that needs to change. And for me, that's the biggest worry. Isn't that he's not going to perform, because and it isn't that the offense isn't better for him this year, because it clearly is, particularly on the offensive line, because the difference between getting an extra half second to throw the ball is the difference between being 4-13 and 9-8, really. Like if you're that level of team with a bit of talent that can move around. And I think the schematically, he can be better planned for this year, because he's a bit more of a known entity inside the Patriots building than they were last year when they were still doing that whole hokey cokey thing at the quarterback position. But for me, the biggest risk to the Matrix, fantastic headline, by the way, I'm loving these. The biggest risk is injury, and it is head injury, in my opinion, because there's been so many times. I remember there was 2 plays when we played on the road against the Bills, a game where, again, in the first half, the Patriots kept the game pretty close because of Drake May, really, and how strong he performed as the quarterback that day in Buffalo. But there was a couple times where he ran with the ball, and again, maybe a better offensive line means he'll run with the ball less. Maybe better options to throw to means he'll run with the ball less, and that will obviously reduce the risk. But even when he does do it, and it's an important part of his arsenal, he's going to do it every game. It's an important part of the modern quarterback game anyway. Stop, for the sake of a half a yard, don't get your head injured, pal. Come on, please just stop giving me like many sort of reasons to panic as I'm watching you play the game, because like I think that's been an under-discussed aspect of Drake May's game as a quarterback, as I don't really see it being focused on in America, because he hasn't been injured, unlike players who have. And we'll talk about it. Like Tua could actually have fewer incidents in a game where that kind of injury could happen, but because it does happen to him, he's the poster boy for somebody who should be probably retiring for the game for having too many concussions. I don't want that to happen to Drake May, and I think that is a big risk to what we can really expect from him over the next 12 months.
Yeah, it's not an issue until it is, isn't it? I think that's the thing with that. Like I say, it's not a problem until it is. And a big part of the offseason moves for the offense as well was the real commitment to offense in the draft. First 3 picks were on the offensive side of the ball: Will Campbell, obviously the tackle, Trevion Henderson, the running back, and Kyle Williams, who I'm particularly excited to see. Does that fill you with confidence that there is kind of a real commitment to breathe new life into the offense?
The shocking part for me is we in the 4th pick, we didn't go offense again, because last year 7 of our 8 picks were on offense, whereas this year there's a bit more balance. When we got to the 4th round, I think it was the 4th round, our 4th pick anyway.
It might have been 5 actually. Yeah, sorry. So the first 4 picks were on offense as well. It was the center that went on in
yes. So yeah, of course, you're right. Sorry, yes. It was our 4th round where we got Craig Woodson, the safety. So yeah, I mean, it's more. It's not necessarily about how much we can read in it in terms of how much we obviously need to change on offense, because we do need to change a lot on offense. Like wide receivers, he's improving. We have a wide receiver. The running game needs serious improvement, because our ball security in that area of the game was crap last year. And I'm actually a big fan of Trevion Henderson. I like maybe my Big Ten bias coming up, but I saw what he was able to do at Ohio State. I think he has the potential to be a really good player. To pick up in the 2nd round, I think it was a really nice move. I wasn't sure whether he would last long enough to be able to be picked at 38 overall, I think is when we had him.
Yeah.
And Will Campbell, I mean, it's funny. I was sitting back. We did a live show for the draft from a bar in Dublin. And I was sitting back being like, do you know what? I kind of like it if the Patriots picked Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. Like, he's a player I loved. I love Mason, and I feel like he might have been able to add something that we didn't have necessarily in our defense. But then Will Campbell puts on the hat and he starts doing the whole like he getting emotional when he's like, "My job is to protect Drake May." I'm like, that's a Mike Vrabel kind of guy. Yeah. That's a Mike Vrabel man. He's in the building doing Mike Vrabel things. I completely understand where we are going with this, and I'm quite happy with the 4th overall pick. So, yeah, in terms of those particular selections, I look, there was more moves being made in free agency as well. More free agency was more on the defensive side of things, which is funny because, like, we've said on the show before that sometimes you find that the best route to success is to draft on offense and spend on defense, and that's what the Patriots have done this year. Which obviously they drafted an offense and didn't spend on anything last year. But I think the point of last year was to try and sort of figure out what they need to spend money on first. It was a write-off year to try and figure out, well, there's no point in blowing money on stuff that actually we don't really need. They've gone out now and they've really bolstered up areas that they needed to bolster. So I think it's interesting. Like everything the Patriots have done compared to the last 3 or 4 years, like it's all positive check marks. It's building up hope. It's building up belief. It's feeling like that 3-year rebuild that we're now in year 2 of is in the stage that it should be, so that we will be competing for divisional titles in the tail end of this decade. But that's all well and good until the ball is kicked.
Yeah, that is true. And like I say, it's a big gap for any of the AFC teams to kind of catch the Bills at the minute, as they've been so dominant over the last 4 or 5 years or so. But yeah, certainly these feel like steps to close that gap. And we've just been talking about it a little bit, so let's continue talking about sort of free agency. Kraft digs into his pockets and splashes the cash. Patriots spend the most amount of money in free agency, big money for Big Milton and co. Sure, the main focus was to improve the defense. I mean, does it feel like that they went and just got guys for Vrabel in free agency? Because it feels like every single one of them, Miller Williams, Bobby Spillane feels like almost like a Mike Vrabel clone, I think, at this point in terms of how he plays. And does it feel like that a lot of that identity can come through with these free agent defensive players?
I think so. I mean, Stephon Diggs is probably the outlier in that he probably isn't necessarily the Vrabel archetype. But I think he's somebody that we need in the locker room, somebody with the ability to be explosive if not consistent. Because we have people who are consistently 6 or 7 out of 10. We need someone who can be a game changer and somebody who I think is an interesting character to have in the room for a season or two. But you can definitely tell, again, this is one of the big differences between the respect that people have for Vrabel as a head coach compared to Gerard Mayo. Not to link back to the previous point, but like how many of the moves that were made last year you can really say that's a Gerard Mayo move. That's what he wants to see in a team. That's his imprint. That's, if we go back to the whole cooking and shopping for the groceries line, how much is he doing with what? Mike Vrabel, his imprint in this, even though he's not the general manager in the way that Bill Belichick was, you can definitely tell that he's put a greater sense of direction into the type of human being. Never mind type of player or skill or whatever, just the type of dude that he wants to talk to and try to get the best out of. And I like, obviously the Will Calvin point was already made, but even take a look at, like, obviously Milton Williams is a fantastic player to put in. I think Morgan Moses, he's the kind of offensive tackle who, again, you can visualize, you can see Vrabel really try to connect them and try to get what he wants out of that particular player and what he wants out of, to try and develop what he wants out of the squad. Again, for me, one of the biggest question marks, is the run game, really, because, I'm not sure what role that has in this team going forward. And you compare it to how the Titans were built with an exceptionally strong run game when they were number 1 seed, as Bayer was referring to earlier. Like, I don't want to overload Drake May in the same way that the Titans are overloading the Jaguars are overloading Trevor Lawrence and are relying too much on him. And whenever Trevor Lawrence is, feeling a bit sick, that the whole team collapses. I think there has to be more dynamism into what the offense can do. But in terms of the type of person that you're getting in terms of the type of player, like, a lot of these guys are definitely Vrabel-esque human beings, and that will build into the kind of team spirit, team culture that he is trying to rebuild after a season when, like I said, a lot of the players just didn't really fight for the jersey they were wearing.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And yeah, I think that's another one about Landry, somebody that Vrabel knows and has worked with. Again, kind of a sign of know what you're getting, sort of, even though he's had his injury issues, I suppose, recently. Right, time for the last headline. This might be the best one that Joe's done. Patriots joshing around on offense. After drawing dead in Vegas, McDaniels returns home to call offense in New England. Are we Stephon digging it, or will it be more Kayshon Boutte? Well done, Joe. We talked about the detail a little on the efforts, but kind of how excited are you for McDaniels to come back? Obviously, he's had a run of kind of a couple of places where he's been head coach, and it's, I think, not worked out is a bit of an understatement, isn't it? It's been a disaster when he's been a head coach, and people haven't really had nice things to say about him. But whenever he returns, he always seems to do a really good job. So yeah, how excited are you feeling about having McDaniels back?
I feel like Josh McDaniels can't operate as a human being unless he's wearing a New England top. And it's funny. And the reason why I'm saying that is because he was brought into Las Vegas to reshape the culture. The Davis family were like, you're bringing in to reshape the culture. Again, I was referring to earlier, tried to rebuild the Patriot way in the desert. And it was funny because there was like the stories coming out that whenever someone would just crack a joke about his time with the Patriots, he really took it personally. He was like, you don't joke about my Patriots team, man. You don't make those kind of jokes. And everyone's like, the hell, man, we're just trying to break your balls here. What's going on? Like, this is just, the respect and love he has for his work he has done in Foxborough, I think probably made it difficult for him to branch out elsewhere and be a head coach. Do I ever want to be a head coach of New England Patriots? No. But I think there are brands of human being that work quite good on as number twos, effectively. There are plenty of people in the world who are a fantastic number two, but can't take that top gig. And if you look at Josh McDaniels' results in New England, we have to remember as well, he dealt with Mac Jones when he was on a rookie season, got a 10-7 record, got into the playoffs, and you see what happened after he left the building. Now, obviously, some of that is down to the fact that Matt Patricia was calling things in the offensive thing, and we didn't really have an offensive coordinator after he left. But crazy stuff. But in terms of his results and what he's been able to do as offensive coordinator, I completely see the logic in New England bringing him back. And again, I just think that just being able to focus on the nitty-gritty of when to pass, when to run, when to do something creative, as we see so many times in those kind of, those flick plays to Edelman and Amendola, for example, back in the day. It just allowed that sense of his genius to come out without the pressure and the expectation to build a culture which has been put on him twice in the AFC West. And I don't mean this as a way to disrespect him, but I just think he's a person who's great at that. Not to pigeonhole him, but he's great at what he does when he is offensive coordinator. And because he's done it in New England before, he's in a space that's comfortable. He's in a space he can control. He's in a space where everybody can really respect him, which is not the case in Las Vegas, because respect is earned. It's not, you can't demand it. You have to earn it. And to what extent did he earn respect in Denver and Las Vegas compared to the respect he has rightly earned in New England as offensive coordinator? And I think that makes a big difference. I'd be interested to know whether the Stephon Diggs is more his idea, though. Remember we were talking earlier about the guys coming in, hashtag Stephon digging it. Like, I just wonder whether that kind of chaotic creative force is more of a McDaniels person and a McDaniels player. And obviously any intel you can get on trying to usurp the Buffalo Bills is always good. Stephon Diggs has generally had good performances against Miami Dolphins, a team we need to beat twice this year. So that's all good stuff to have in the bank as well. And maybe McDaniels probably was quite happy to be like, listen, if you want to take the first week off of OTAs to, go on a little boat trip in Florida, who doesn't like doing that? Then, we can deal with it. And I think that's what he's bringing. I think I think his nature is a little bit different to Vrabel's, and that Vrabel, again, he's a bit more regimented. He comes from a more militaristic style of football. It's about territory. It's about respect. It's about strength. It's about teamwork. Whereas I think McDaniels has the ability just to bring that flair. And if you're looking for, I'm not saying I'm looking for a Brian Clough, Peter Taylor in New England, but if you're looking for some sort of yin and yang in terms of what they bring to the setup and what could be healthy for Drake May to be more expressive, because in Drake May as a person, if you're ever in a room with him, he's just a playful guy, and you got to let a playful guy play. I don't think that a Nick Saban type style of coaching would work on him. So I think that's why he's brought in there as well, in terms of his ability to command the respect that he's earned in the building, but also get the most out of the players that he has at his disposal. I would just be really interested in, because I'm not expecting his I think Vrabel will have a more immediate impact than Josh McDaniels. I think that the team you will see it in the first couple of games of the year, a more hard-nosed, disciplined football team, and the creative side that Josh McDaniels may be able to bring into the setup will take a few weeks to show. So, look, if we're having this conversation in the middle of September or in early October, I think it's important not to sort of roll back into superlatives and let things progress a little bit in this relationship.
Yeah, interested to see, like, what I can get out of the pieces that are around in there and what they've brought in on the offense. So very, very intriguing. And let's have a look at the last bits of who's come in and who's coming through the draft and who's coming through free agency. So we've touched on kind of the big ones. Maybe we can talk about Carlton Davis coming in free agency as well. And then the draft, some more depth defensively. Who's somebody we've not really talked about, Shane, who might be going a bit under the radar in Foxborough in terms of somebody who could make a big, big contribution to the Patriots in 2025?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think I mentioned Trayvon Henderson already, so that's I was trying to pivot on to a different point. I think I think more so than individual flair, it's a systems thing that really has to go well. Obviously, Carlton Davis as corner to try and pair up with Christian Gonzalez. It gives him Christian Gonzalez staying fit, staying explosive in his own way is important. It's also interesting as well to see them bring in Josh Dobbs into the quarterback room, which I just think would be funny for content more than anything else. Jack Gibbons, linebacker, who was put in as well, was he played in Tennessee, he played in Mike Vrabel, and he was also the kind of player who was able to fit into some special team situations. So he may be important in areas that we don't really talk about. But I'm not looking for individuals with the Patriots as much as I would with other teams, because it really is, it really is a systems type thing, which I'm expecting to change how we play the game.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I think, definitely needs to be kind of that reset. Byron, I think from our conversations previously, I think you're a big Kyle Williams fan, like I am as well.
Yeah, he was my when we done our pre-draft thing, he was my most underrated wide receiver. He ended up going earlier than he was speculated to. I mean, probably around where I would have taken him, I guess. Second round, early third rounder, I think is a great value. And yeah, I think he's just what they need. And just a touch on Stephon Diggs, we've talked about him quite a lot. I think one of the things that often gets underplayed with Stephon Diggs is Stephon Diggs is a beast of a worker. He has never, his reputation kind of falls off a little in his third year in places has been a little difficult. He works, I think, like no other wide receiver in the league. It's a bit like Antonio Brown in that respect. He might have a couple of character concerns. I mean, Antonio Brown obviously a lot more towards the end of his career, but he will come in and he will work his ass off. And I think he'll be a great example to Carl Williams, to Jalen Polk from last year, who didn't have a noteworthy rookie season in any positive way. Javon Baker as well. I think having someone like Stephon Diggs there will be a great asset for them, because he's a guy who he's on the the jugs machine every single day, even though he's an all-pro wide receiver. So yeah, I think they wanted to bring in Chris Godwin as well, but the problem with free agency is everybody wants a small handful of players. New England did spend up on defense, but they would have happily paid another 26, 28 million, whatever per year to get Chris Godwin, and he just chose to stay in Tampa. So yeah, I love Carl Williams, though. I'm really excited to see how he does year one, year two. But I think he's got a good role model in Stephon Diggs, which, again, a lot of people might not think of. But I think for the way he plays and the way he trains and how he is as a professional, I think he's a perfect person to around young receivers.
Yeah, and just on the wide receiver point, I think what has been forgotten, I think, in a lot of the talk around is the fact that Mac Hollins is now in the Patriots dressing room as well. It'd be interesting to see what way he approaches the preseason in particular. Again, as somebody who is somebody that the tranche of young wide receivers that the Patriots have can learn from. I think Mac Hollins is a good guy, but also he has the potential, I think, to really work if, again, he needs to stay fit. But I think he has the potential to be that WR3 that can just keep things reliable and keep things moving. And one person I'm sad to see go, by the way, and again, not many people really care about this, But Joe Milton, I think, was a pretty solid backup quarterback to have. I was kind of sad to see him go to Dallas, place where he might end up starting. Funnily enough,
like I was Cowboys fans, and we were pretty pleased to get him in as our backup. He might not be the best player, but he's certainly exciting.
I think he's got great potential. I'm basing that off. I don't want to base that too much off the Buffalo performance. I base that off his college form, but also times I've seen him and people who I know who have looked closely at him. He's a ridiculously hard trainer. I saw him throw the ball in Harrow last year ahead of the game in Wembley, and the zip he puts in the ball is incredible. Like it really is the speed he has. Why the decision was made to move him on, I don't know. Again, maybe he's not a variable person. Maybe just that they just like what the Cowboys put on the table for him, that they really wanted him, and rightly so. So that's somebody I'm kind of sad to go. But in terms of individuals, I think Mac Hollins is definitely somebody we should be keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, excellent. I certainly know, however it goes for him, he'll be approaching this season, as always, with no shoes, as he always likes to do. He's used to it from Buffalo, I guess. It's not any colder, is it, in Boston, I guess. So, he's well prepared for it.
Yeah.
Let's have a look then at some of the odds and lines for the New England Patriots. I'm a bit slow on the... There we go. We're on the right one. So, the sort of forecast for the New England Patriots. So, Vegas, the bookies seem to think that Patriots will be right around 8 wins, over under 8, over under 7.5 wins. So, Shane, how do you feel what do you think the Patriots' record is going to end up being based on who they've got? Because early it's soft. Like, I think they could get off to a real good start because they've got some softer games early in the schedule. And kind of the first half is pretty light, apart from a Sunday night game against the Bills. The Patriots could stack up some wins early here.
For week 18, it's pretty soft.
I just to quote John Mayo, we play a lot of soft football teams this year. I'm looking at the schedule here, so forgive me. Vegas, Miami, Pittsburgh, Carolina, Buffalo week 5, New Orleans, Tennessee, Cleveland, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, the Jets, the Bengals, the Giants, bye week, the Bills again, the Ravens, the Jets and Miami. That's 3 difficult games.
Yeah,
it does get a bit tough for that second half. Obviously, Bucs are a good team. Bengals, hopefully.
Okay. So I'm probably not putting enough respect on the Buccaneers in particular, and the Bengals are the Bengals. I mean, they are an incredibly talented squad, but it's funny because if you ask me in terms of where this team are in talent and progression, I would say they're about a 6 or 7 win team. I think they gained 2 wins based on that schedule. If we're not beating the Dolphins twice this year, I don't know what we're doing as a football team. Because I don't rate the Dolphins this year at all. And I think the Jets, we should be able to beat the Jets at least once, potentially twice. I'm not sure how I view the Jets. My view on that divisional matchup isn't really based on where the Patriots are, but more where the Jets will be by the time we face them in the second half of the year. So I'll be honest, I went through this a couple of weeks ago on a pod I did, and I came up with 9 wins. Now, I'm going to put the Steelers one as a hard overhead win, because I just want to see that defense put Aaron Rodgers in the milkshake machine the week before he has to come to Dublin. Funnily enough, but the schedule is just not a difficult one, and were it not for the fact that we were in the same division as the Buffalo Bills, I think we'll be in more people's conversations because of the schedule more than what we can do. And in terms of this, is a really nice place to be in our 3-year progression. By the way, if this is the year that we really start learning and start to put our stamp on who we want to be as a football team. Starting out in Vegas, having to go to Miami. Now, traveling to Miami in September is always going to be a hot day, and we don't have a great record down there, but I think we should be able to do it. By the time we get to week 9, the only difficult game is at the Buffalo Bills in prime time. And I'm quite happy to sit here and say that if we lose both games to Buffalo, it's not the end of the world. I don't think it's going to make or break our season. So, I'm gonna go with 8 wins this year. So so I'll be hitting the over on that one, but cautiously. But I think 8 wins is probably where the Patriots are at, based mainly on the schedule more than where the team are.
Yeah, I feel like when I did my run, I think it's a bit unfair. I had them at 6 to 7 wins, which I think might be a bit unfair given how soft that schedule is, kind of looking at it all in one like that. Byron, where have you got the Patriots?
I have Patriots 10-7, yeah, and that's splitting with the Dolphins, splitting with the Jets, just because, like you say, Shane, September in Miami is a tough one. And Miami, I have Miami win 4 games all season, so I fully agree with you on them being bad. But I think they'll win a couple. But yeah, it's really tough to pick teams that the New England Patriots are worse than here. They've got a good head coach. The defense is, on paper, incredibly good. Christian Barmore, we haven't mentioned yet, coming back as well. I think the schedule helps a lot, to get to 10 wins, obviously. But yeah, the defense is really good. I really like Drake May. I think McDaniels is still a much more fundamentally sound offense than they've had last year, certainly. So yeah, I'm at 10 wins, which is just about good enough for the playoffs, depending on how your tiebreakers go, etc. So yeah, I think wheels up for the Pats this season.
Yeah, Joe's got 8 wins for the Patriots, so we're not too far away, I don't think. Yeah, I think my city, obviously I did that a couple of months ago. I think that's wild, really. I think, closer to 9, I think, is more realistic for the Patriots. Yeah, I think they'll be good. I do think they'll be kind of solid, just a solid football team. I think sometimes we've seen them lose some crazy games in these last few years where you just think there's no way kind of they throw games away like that. So, yeah, I think they'll just be more solid. Fundamentally, might not necessarily be massively exciting this year in terms of the way they go about winning games. That might change moving forward, but I just think they'll be a real solid, fundamentally sound football team. And that usually leads to winning football. So we shall see. Do you think, Shane, like you've talked about 8 wins, Byron says 10, do you think there's a way that they can push on and sneak, kind of push away into the playoffs there? Obviously, odds on to not make the playoffs, but yeah, I think 9 or 10 wins, you've definitely got a sniff.
So let's go with the situation that the Patriots are 9-8. As much as I love a 10-7 season, I think 10-7 will probably be good enough. But I struggle to see that happening personally. Maybe it's my own just natural pessimism as a Boston sports fan, which is unearned. But,
that's insane thing to say, by the
way. But
they've got months without a title, Paul.
Months. It's been months without a championship.
I know.
Big babies born who haven't seen a Boston title.
I know. Not too many.
No,
but
not many.
In terms of in terms of like who's got to pip us to that 7th spot, basically. That's what I'm looking at. Because if we're at 9-8, who are you getting on top of? Because we can, like, there's going to be a second team from the AFC North. Either the Bengals or the Ravens, whoever comes second. There's going to be a second team from the AFC West, probably the Chargers. So 9-8, are you better than the Broncos, the Steelers potentially? I don't think anybody else in the AFC South is going to be competing at that level. Personally, I think whoever wins the AFC South will probably be a 9-8 winner, and then whoever comes second, won't be battling for that last playoff spot. So. I would say no on the belief that the Broncos will probably in that situation, the Broncos will probably be a better team and therefore have a better record. Whatever way the tiebreakers work, we don't play against the Broncos this year, I don't believe. But it, like, strength of schedule, for example, does not work in our favor if we play a lot of losing teams, and that's the type of tiebreaker that we're relying on. So I probably put with the no on this one. But again, in that situation where it is 9-8. Like, it makes for a very, very interesting last Sunday, because there will be permutations in the last couple of weeks. I think certainly by Christmas time, the Patriots will be in the playoff hunt. I do believe that.
Yeah, certainly. Like I say, you get to that point where you're getting closing in and around 9 wins, then for sure they'll be in the mix. And yeah, who knows? Maybe that week 3 against the Steelers might end up being important coming down the stretch, because it feels like Pittsburgh will be kind of on that bubble of 8, 9, 10 wins as they usually are. So that one could end up being important in who gets in towards the end of the year. Just having a look then at the odds. The Patriots are 5-1 to win the division. So Bills are heavily odds on favourites to win the AFC East. 35-1 to win the AFC, and 65-1 to win Super Bowl 60. Feels a bit too feels like not this year, not there yet. I don't think for the Patriots, the Super Bowl. I think we're a couple of years down the line of building before getting there.
Well, I mean, we thought that in 2001. Backup quarterback. We're going nowhere here. Oh look. So I know.
There's that pessimistic Patriots fan again.
Sarcastic Patriots fan this time. But I think if the AFC East was the division of teams actually on the East Coast and not on the Great Lakes, i.e. take out Buffalo, we would definitely be winning that. I would definitely put us at being above the Jets and the Dolphins. That I can pretty much assure you. But obviously, I think the Bills are probably coming this season where they have one of, if not their greatest chance to win a Super Bowl this year. I really am a believer in what Buffalo can do this year. So look, when you're in a division like that, it's a bit like having a conversation about any AFC West team, a bit like having a conversation about any AFC East team about 10 years ago, if we were talking about anybody other than the Patriots. So like the Bills have the division locked up. So I wouldn't be taking any of those bets at all. I'm the kind of person as well. Like I wouldn't bet on us to win a Super Bowl because if we won, I'd be happy anyway. I bet on the win a Super Bowl, so at least I have something to console myself with.
Yeah, I mean, like we're the same as Cowboys fans. We don't bet on our team to win the Super Bowl as well, Shane. As well. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I have to make an NFC Championship game first, unfortunately.
Excellent, Shane. You've been a wonderful guest again. Thanks for coming on Good Teams and Great Teams cover. We really, really do appreciate it. Just a reminder, then, just give us a shout out again where we can follow and where we can catch the Irish NFL Show.
Yeah, at IRE NFL on Twitter, at Irish NFL Show on Instagram. Look up the Irish NFL Show. We're on Spotify and YouTube. Our YouTube probably isn't as active as it should be, but our Spotify definitely is. So that's the best place to go and find us. But for now, guys, thank you very much for having me on. It's been great fun.
Excellent. Thanks again, Shane. And we will continue the rest of the episode by previewing the Bills, the Jets, and the Dolphins. Miami. I forgot who the third team was then for a second. Thanks again to Shane there from the Irish NFL Show. Make sure you go give those guys a follow. They've got a lot of great episodes, great content coming up. And, of course, we'll be heavily covering the college football, Lincoln's College Football Classic, and, of course, Steelers' visit to Dublin in September. Great guest, Shane, there. We're here for the rest. We're moving on to the Buffalo Bills to start. Excellent. Let's get up then the Buffalo Bills headlines. Excellent. First one for the Buffalo Bills, Allen, the family. I need to start that again. I wrote this one as well.
You can tell.
In the family. Buffalo keeps it in-house. Reigning MVP signed 6 years, 6-year extension, and will make $55 million per year. Bills also re-signed core players. Does internal chemistry beat flashy moves? Yeah, not too much from the Bills, kind of outside what they already had. What do we like? Do we like that's the way that the Bills have gone in terms of just kind of keeping this core intact? Definitely progression last year, even though they kind of weirdly fell to the same hurdle again in the playoffs. But yeah, what do we think of that approach from Buffalo?
I think it's sensible. They've been one of the best teams in the NFL for 5 years now. I think they've got the most wins over the last 5 years in regular seasons, obviously. It'd be wild to try and blow things up, I think. You're good with what you know, so I think you stick with what you know.
I think it helps having the head coach, the defensive head coach. It feels like he always has a good defense. It may not be spectacular or they're in like the top 5, but it's always a solid one. So he wants to keep his position. Obviously, they've done a few turnarounds, get some youngsters playing in, and you've got to pay Josh Allen, and it's well worth that deal, that 6-year extension, making him second in average per year. Do you know who number 1 is?
Dak Prescott.
It is at $60 million. There's quite a lot of players at $55 million a year. So Allen joins plenty of players, but it's probably worth more than that. But it's not too bad as a wedding present from the Bills. So I'm sure he's happy.
Excellent. Let's move on now. Let's have a look at the second headline for the Buffalo Bills. Bills freeze out rivals with focus on defense. Bills believe they have accomplished this by adding a number of veterans and drafting 6 defenders. Can this be the year Buffalo stand out from the herd? Big focus on defense. And I think that makes sense, right? Ultimately, Offensively, very, very productive last year. They gave up 30 points in a playoff game. That's ultimately what killed them. Had to be focused on defense. Have they done enough? Because I think regular season, yes, but have they done enough come January when they're going to go against these high-powered offenses? You know, they're probably going to have to come up against one or two of the Ravens, the Bengals, the Chiefs. Have they done enough to be able to compete defensively?
I mean, I guess they hope that Joey Bosa's fit when it matters in the season because he's already banged up to start the season. Ogunjobi, who they got in free agency, is suspended, I believe, to start the season as well. So I think they're rightly so not really focusing on the regular season as such. I'm not going to say they're taking it as a given they can win the division, but, you know, they're obviously favoured for a reason. Maxwell Hairston, obviously an interesting pick. That's a first-round pick, a cornerback, position of need. So you can see what they're doing. You know, the first offensive skill position or first offensive draft pick wasn't until 173. Their 6th pick of the draft. So they know what they need to focus on. Josh Allen, you know, carries all boats with him on offense. You know, you might not have high-name players, but, you know, Khalil Shakir, Josh Palmer, Don Kincaid, Keon Coleman, whoever, Elijah Moore even's back this year. Like, you kind of just think Josh Allen will get the best out of it because it's Josh Allen. Defense, yeah, add bodies, add numbers, and hope for the best come playoff time, I think, is ultimately what it has to be. It's hard to see what else they could have done, really.
Yeah, because they also said Michael Hoyt was also suspended as well. So they've got a few players who they brought in who's not available. I think they were aware of one and not the other. But like you said, the Bills are just focusing on the playoffs. They brought some other veterans in like Shaq Thompson and obviously Von Miller going out and Joey Bosa coming in. You just hope that they stay fit. I think that's been the problem with I think last year Bills defense was one of the most injured as well. So you're just praying to the injury gods that they stay fit, and you've got these veterans just to help the get off the line because they're going to come up against, you know, Ravens, Chiefs. You know, if the Bengals make it, you know, a lot of high-power offenses, and they need to, you know, perform when it matters. And that extra can, with these veterans, just give them that extra little nudge which they need. Because I think the last few years, especially last year, was, you know, there was some discussions about was it a first down or not. But still, it's them big moments where it feels like the Chiefs step up and the Bills don't, and they just need to have that veteran presence to get them to the promised land and actually get to a Super Bowl, which they certainly deserve to be at. But, you know, unfortunately, you're in a division where Patrick Mahomes just keeps winning.
Yeah, ultimately, you know, they scored 29 on the road against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, and you'd hope that more, you know, 9 times out of 10 that would be enough, but your defense doesn't hold up, and yeah, you don't make it despite a fantastic season and having the MVP. So, yeah, definitely need to see more out of that defense come January. Next up then for the Bills, off-season headlines. Bills letting Cook marinate. Jesus. Can the Bills resolve a contract dispute with 2-time 1,000-yard rusher who may hold out of training camp? What is the fantasy lookout for running back James Cook? Let's start with that, Byron, as that's the last question in the headline.
Yeah.
You are the resident fantasy expert, of course.
Cheers, yeah. I think you kind of have to assume that he's going to be in camp at some point because he doesn't have the leverage to not be. The biggest issue I think with James Cook is, in terms of fantasy, I'm not going to say so touchdown dependent, but he got 16 touchdowns last year, and that still wasn't enough to be like an RB1. Well, an RB1, but not the RB1. So I think, you know, he's currently being drafted at running back 15. I would probably knock him down a little because I expect those touchdowns to go. I mean, you could half them realistically. His prior 2 years, he had 2 and 2 rushing touchdowns. Last year, he had 16. So I think it's fair to expect them to, like I say, I would say drop even by half. I would take Kenneth Walker over him. I'd take Alvin Kamara over him. And then you kind of get into more murky waters. Joe Mixon was up and down. His numbers overall were good last year, but I think he stumbled out down the stretch. James Conner, R.G. Harvey, Trevian Henderson. I mean, I think I'd take him over Trevian Henderson because he's got a more secure role. I just think don't have expectations of last year being the future because 16 touchdowns is not hugely repeatable. I think Josh Allen had his career low in rushing touchdowns last year. Maybe not career low, but he had 12 as well, sorry. So at some point, Josh Josh Allen's going to have a passing takeover of touchdowns. I think it was his passing touchdowns were a multiple year low. 28 last year, coming off 29, 35, 36, 37. If he goes up to nearly 40 again, those are coming off James Cook. They might come off his own rushing totals as well. But yeah, James Cook's numbers will go down in terms of touchdowns next year. It might be 1,000 yards-ish again, but I think they're going to work in Ty Johnson again on third downs, who the Bills treat like one of the best third down backs in the league. He's a really good pass catcher. And I think Ray Davis is probably one of my favourite handcuff running backs. If James Cook does start the season slow or holding out, Ray Davis will come in, and I'm not sure how much of a drop-off there'd be, truthfully. I think he's a really dynamic runner, Ray Davis. So I'd rather take Ray Davis where he's going than James Cook where he's going.
So how important do you think it is then for the Bills' offense? Like, if this does rumble on, can they sort of cope? And
ultimately, yeah, I think they can. Which it sucks for these running backs because I think they have so little leverage, and for the vast majority of the time, you can put someone else in there and probably get, like I say, I think if you put Ray Davis in there, you probably get 85% of the output without much thought, and that stinks when you're trying to get paid because Ray Davis isn't in any position to ask for a pay increase because he's only a second-year player.
Excellent. Cool. Let's move on to headline number 4 then. I'm looking forward to this one, Joe. Bills better hope Shakir's hips don't lie. Very good. Buffalo hoping for a big year from Khalil. The Bills have enough wide receiver weapons with unproven Coleman, an average Palmer, Moore, Samuels, etc. to follow. Joe, considering you wrote that great headline, you can take point on Khalil Shakir.
Yeah, it's obviously had a great year last year. Even though his numbers weren't amazing, it was one of them sneaky as well. I thought, he must have got 1,000 yards, but I think it was around the 800 mark, 821 in the regular season. I thought he stood out. I don't know if he's a true number one wide receiver. I think going into the year, I think he's a high-end number 2, wide receiver 2, I would say. And that's just like the worry when you've got Keon Coleman, where obviously he's in his second year, so he could improve, but he didn't set the world on fire last year, being number 2. Like I've mentioned, the Palmer, Moore, Curtis Samuel. You do worry, like, I don't during the regular season, I don't think it really matters. I think Josh Allen will take over games like he does if they need to be. And I'm actually a huge James Cook fan. I think he's a bit underappreciated at running back, especially catching out the back and what it does for that team, especially being in Buffalo with the weather they have. But that's just the kind of where I just worry in the playoffs again when your wide receivers obviously got Knox and Kincaid at tight end. Where do you have someone to take over games at wide receiver? Not every team needs it, but that's my only worry for the Bills, that they haven't got enough. If you have 1 or 2 injuries as well, that you're relying on wide receiver 3, 4s to fill that position. And like I said, I don't think Khalil Shakir is a true wide receiver 1. I think he's a great wide receiver 2. I think it'll be any team would love him there, but I'm not quite sure wide receiver 1. I
think ultimately he's just so reliable, isn't he? Like, so consistent, and you see very rarely see drops out of him. Like, if it's within the span, he catches it, and he will catch some that aren't. So I think that's why Josh Allen loves him so much, and he's not going to let you down. And I think he's going to have a big year. I hope he's in my Scott Fishbowl team, so I hope, of course, he has a big year. But I'm expecting a good season from Shakir, and again, just enough that he can just take that little bit of pressure off Josh Allen, not have to fully hero ball games, which we've seen before as well. Excellent. Let's have a look then at the transactions for the Bills. The ins, outs, free agency, draft. We've talked a little bit already about some of them, but again, is there anyone kind of that we've not touched on who we think is going to have and make a big impact for the Bills in 2025?
I'm not sure about a huge impact, but it's nice to see Trey White back. Feels like his rightful home, so that's a nice one to see. And again, just gives them more depth on the back end, which I think is crucial, especially come January.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Elam dumped in an AFC Championship game, and the Chiefs just picked on him for 7 or 8 minutes while they were hoping that injured players would return in the game. But Trey White Shakes didn't really work out, did it, in LA? It was at the Rams, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then Baltimore, I think.
Yeah. It didn't really work out the Rams, and then so we'll see if they can get some production out of their former first round pick. I'm Josh Palmer always intrigues me. As I feel like I felt maybe I think a lot of people felt maybe last year at the Chargers that was going to be the sort of big breakout, and it just didn't happen. Do you think there's any more chance of that happening in Buffalo? Like it's not as if he's competing with. There's not really anybody else like him at wide receiver for the Bills, is he, in terms of his profile and his style?
No, not really. I think if he can hit, it'll be a very useful weapon for Josh Allen. I think it's just that, will he hit? It's been a lot of teasing throughout his career of, there could be a player in here, and then it just seems to end up falling short. So I wouldn't say I'm optimistic, I will say, of his chances, but there is a player in there. It's been so inconsistent over the years. It's hard to trust it, is my opinion.
Yeah, and it's not like he's been playing with a good quarterback as well, so you can't really use that excuse. He's been with Herbert enough times, and he's always around that 600-700 yard mark. I think it'll be something similar. I can't see him being 1,000-yard wide receiver, especially with Josh Allen compared. I think Herbert's more of a thrower, and if you can't do it with him, with the opportunity he had last year, it was a really good team. I can't imagine him doing with the Bills. I think he's just going to be wide receiver 2 or 3 and just a steady hand. But I'm curious about a lot of the defenders they've got in. I think they might have to play this year just with the the injuries and suspension. So TJ Sanders and Jackson as well, Landon Jackson. I'm curious how he'll play because I thought he'd be more fit in a 3-4 defense, but it's Bills are more of a 4-3 defense. So will he be quick enough to play on the edge, or will they move him inside? So I think they'll be, because he was an interesting one of the defensive edges where when we were drafting, he could have gone high first round to, obviously he went in the 3rd round, one of them players where he could have gone a few different places. So they may have landed a great player there.
Yeah, essentially. Excellent. Right, let's have a look then at some lines for the Buffalo Bills. He was lost Byron under the banner for a second there. Over under 11.5 wins for the Bills. 7-5 to hit the under. So heavily odds on to hit the over. So Vegas seem to think 12 wins. Where have you guys got the Buffalo Bills?
I have them at 14-3. I think the cream of the division pretty clearly, and schedule doesn't scare me. So 14 wins for me.
Yeah, I've got them at 13 wins. Yeah, 13-4. So again, they'll be thereabouts. I think they'll get the over. Just with even though we'll talk about the Patriots and the other teams in the division, I still think they're way above each team, and you expect them to at least get 5 or 6 wins just from them 3 teams. So I think it's going to be another great year. Now they'll be battling out with the Ravens and Chiefs for that first seed again.
Yeah, I like the schedule. I've got them at 13-4 as well. The same. So they've got a tough game week 1 against the Ravens.
Then when's the next one?
Yeah. So that's what I mean. And then, you probably run, they could quite easily run the tape, they very easily win Sunday Night Football at home against the Ravens. Could lose that, but then until then they host the Chiefs in week 9.
Yeah.
That's kind of, so they could be 8-1, 8-1 or 7, 4, 5, 6. Got bye week, so 7-1 or 8-0 heading into. I can't do maths all of a sudden. 6-1 or 7-0 heading into week 9 against the Chiefs, and then again they've got a run of games. There's some tough ones, I guess. Texans on the road, Bengals. Nobody knows how good they're going to be, but it's pretty run. I've got them at 13-4. They'll drop it. They'll drop one game where you go, how the hell have they lost to that team? Because that's kind of what the Buffalo Bills do. That could be week 18 against the Jets, for example, when they've already got the division wrapped up. That's one thing I just wanted to quickly ask as well. So we've seen them wrap this AFC East up quite early. Last year was insane. I think it was before December. I think it might have been like in the Thanksgiving time.
Yeah.
Is there a worry that, again, we're expecting them to be dominant and probably win this at a canter? Is there a risk that they go into the playoffs undercooked? I think we talked about this last year when they won the division with 5 weeks to go or whatever it was.
I don't really worry about it, I must say. I think if you get into there, then you can't trust you're going to be ready. I mean, they did come out and absolutely put stinking on the Broncos in the first, the wild card round, 31-7, I think it was. And I'm not sure it was that close, really. And then the next two games were the Ravens and the Chiefs. So, you know, they played both games incredibly closely. They could have lost to the Ravens, obviously, if Mark Andrews had wrangled that last one in. But I think if you go toe-to-toe with the Ravens and the Chiefs, I don't think you've really come in too cold. I think you've about par, isn't it? You know, you win one, you lose one, you go really close in both. You could have won both, could have lost both, really, as well, with how they played out. But I think that's about their level. I don't think they're necessarily better than either of those teams. So to push them both close, I think that's what I would anticipate.
Fair. Just thought we'd ask because I expect having that conversation again in early December.
We will do, yeah.
But we'll see. To make the playoffs, unsurprisingly, heavily odds on to make the playoffs. 8-1 on, 5-1 to not make the playoffs. It'd have to be an absolute disaster of a season for them not to make the playoffs, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it'd have to be an early Josh Allen injury, I guess, probably. That'd be the only reason I could see them, not really making the playoffs. To win the division, heavily odds on, 13-5 on, 15-4 to win the AFC, and 13-2, 6.5-1. I think we've got three teams at 13-2 as it stands right now to win the Super Bowl. I think it's the Ravens, I think it's the Bills, and it's the Eagles, I think, at 13-2 as we stand. So three favourites. Would you like? I think this might be the year they finally do it. I really do.
I don't have any good reason to say no. I've picked the Ravens to win it this year, but I'm not going to sit here and say the Ravens are noticeably at a level above the Bills. I think them, the Chiefs, the Eagles, I think they're all very short price for a good reason. Like, it's very hard to pick between the four.
Yeah, I think until they beat the Chiefs, I'm probably always going to go the Chiefs. That's like the Chiefs are actually favourite to win the conference, but the Bills have got worse odds to win the Super Bowl. So I think it's just that getting over that hump and beating the Chiefs. And we keep saying it like getting the home tie and all that kind of stuff. It never really matters because they've lost both sides. I think the last 4 years or however many years it is. Until they beat them, then I'm probably not going to put money on just because obviously the Chiefs have got something over them and everyone else in the AFC. So
so let's bookmark this when I take the Chiefs plus however many points they'll get going to Buffalo in week 9. I'll be an idiot again because the Bills will beat them in the regular season, like they just seem to do. Yep. Excellent. Right. Let's move on. We are on to the Miami Dolphins. This should be an interesting 15 minutes. Miami Dolphins finished or just getting started. Dolphins drift in murky waters. Off-season moves such as Ramsey and Jonnu Smith trade left fans scratching their heads. Their playoff hopes may be sinking. What do we think the Miami Dolphins are trying to do? I think that's probably my first question and might be a surprising one. Just like, I'm struggling to understand it. Can either of you two kind of make sense of kind of how they're trying to navigate 2025?
No.
No.
I think for me it's the cap. So if you look at the cap situation, they've come into training camp with the second least. I think they've only got like 600,000 or something around that. It's only the Bills who have got smaller. So, but the Bills have got a star quarterback and a great team set up while the Dolphins don't. It feels like their year was 2 years ago. They've swung and missed on a few players, a few drafts, and now you get rid of Vic Fangio because he wasn't quite working and he goes off to win a Super Bowl and et cetera, et cetera. So it's just been one bad decision after the next. And, they had the whole soft, but it feels like a lot of big players have left. And now, like you said, they are a bit drifted into murky waters to be like, what do you actually see? I think the biggest problem is, obviously we'll get onto it, is you pay through all that money and you can't guarantee he's going to be a top-end quarterback. So that's the crux, because a lot of these teams who have these cap issues is because they've got a solid quarterback who is going to play well and actually play all the season. So that's where I think they've missed a trick, and a few players they've let go, and obviously they've just not done well keeping this cap on in a decent position.
Yeah. So right, let's have a look at headline number 2 then for the Dolphins. Tua or false? Dolphins gamble on stability. Quiet off-season suggests confidence in the current core. Is this confidence misplaced, especially with a young goal line?
I mean, I think so. I don't want to be too much of a downer on the Dolphins, but it's hard not to be, really. A lot of pressure on Patrick Paul as a second-year player. I just don't really see what James Daniels coming off an Achilles injury as a guard doesn't bode well. Obviously, Armstead retired, as was kind of anticipated. There's just so little there to give you hope. And, as much as I think Tua can be a bit of an easy punching bag, I think, to be fair to him, every year he's been a starter, he's had a winning record when he started games. Tua, he's not the issue, in my opinion. The issue is that the scheme around him, or there's not so much the scheme, the setup around him it's not beneficial. You've got two really good wide receivers, but other than that, you look at that offense, especially the offensive line, and you think this is bottom half of the league would be generous as a description. I'd say you're probably looking at bottom 6 of the league in terms of what they get out of it, and it just never seems like, a bit like the Seahawks for years, it just never seems like the biggest priority to resolve it. And I know you can only solve so many things in any given year, but I remember when we were doing our pre-draft previews, and that was the first time I'd really looked at the Dolphins. I'm like, I don't know what this squad is, and I still don't. They've had a draft and free agency since then, and they've got rid of Jonnu Smith. I don't hate that move. I think Jonnu was a kind of a beneficiary of their bad offensive line last year with so many dump-off passes, him and Achan, that it kind of just led to that style, which is why Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill had such bad seasons. If you're drafting them in fantasy, you probably didn't win your leagues. Jalen Ramsey didn't seem like he wanted to be there. It seemed like they were happy to get rid of the salary. Bring back Minkah Fitzpatrick, which, okay. But I just think if it's confidence rather than an inability to get something done, then I think it is wildly misplaced. Ultimately in this offensive line, because I don't know what's there that you have faith in. They're going to be starting a rookie at right guard, like I say, a player coming off an Achilles at left guard, a rookie last year who didn't have a great season, Patrick Paul, for what he played. So yeah, I just don't know how you could go into that with confidence. Ultimately,
it's that weird thing as well with last year. It was always like, well, if Armstead doesn't play, Tua's not going to play great. It felt like it was always they were connected. So like you said, that Patrick Paul is huge. He's got a huge year ahead of him. And then when you look at the defense, obviously they've got some star players where you look into it, oh yeah, forgot that. Bradley Chubb signed all that money in Miami, but obviously he had the big injury. Jalen Phillips as well. So they have got some decent, Chop Robinson, I think had a good rookie year. So there's some bright spots, but then you look at the back end and you're like, who's who? And they've got Minkah, but then you got Storm Duck and is your number one cornerback, and it's like, oh, that is a big worry for me. Is the defensive backs? I think teams will be able to take advantage of that. And then you're putting pressure on Tua, well, who's not, it's not like he's a big ball player where if he's down, he can suddenly get that team. I know they've got the home run hitters in Hill, but he's another year older. So you just worry that if they get behind in games, it could be kind of scary, because it felt like when they were the best, they just hit a team in the face and just points, just non-stop. But now it's like, oh, if the offensive line starts is a worry, and then everything else starts falling, crumbling behind them. It's I'm not too bullish about the Dolphins too. I think it could be not a great season for them.
Is there a bit where behind the scheme they can help this O-line out a little bit? Obviously, Tua already is, I think, by far and away quickest release in the NFL. It's under 2.5 seconds, isn't it, for drop back? Is there any more Mike McDaniel can do here to compensate for this offensive line that looks like it's going to be a big, big weakness?
This is why I'm so high on Devon Achan in fantasy again, because I think you're going to be looking at an awful lot of dump-offs to him. He's one of the best receiving backs in the NFL. He's rapid. I think he's going to be getting so many touches, in and around the line of scrimmage. I think Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to carry on doing what they're doing. Maybe they'll be used more motion to get them looser at the line of scrimmage. The running starts as much as they can. And as much, I don't hugely rate Jonnu Smith. I think, again, last year was a bit of a fluke season. Darren Waller, even at Darren Waller's best, isn't that kind of player. He's not going to be getting you screen passes and taking them up the field. He wants to be a vertical threat receiver. So I kind of worry if they're going to bring in another, tight end fullback hybrid type player that could, chip away at the O-line. Darren Waller's not coming into block either. That was one of the reasons he said he retired. He was sick of doing it, essentially. So yeah, I mean, Mike McDaniel, for all the criticism we've given him over the last couple of years, and I think fully justified with how they've gone, I do trust him to scheme offense. So I think he will get the best out of this bunch, but I don't know what the best of this bunch is. I don't think it's a top 10 offense.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, let's move on to headline number 3. Speaking of Mike McDaniel, is Mike McDaniel feeling the heat in South Beach? Much heralded offensive mind, maybe running out of time in Miami. How can the Dolphins swim upstream in 2025? I'll hold my hands up. I wrote that. It is terrible. We talked. Maybe there's some surprise. I don't think many media outlets, but I think us, I just described us as a media outlet then. And we talked about maybe Mike McDaniel was quite lucky to keep his job last year because, you can't do too much about, obviously, Tua's, availability and injury. Sometimes that's just one of them things. Other head coaches found ways to win games without their starting quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And Mike McDaniel is heralded as this offensive guru, genius, whatever, and he couldn't really do it. Like I say, if it goes wrong again this year, are we expecting to kind of see the end of Mike McDaniel in Miami?
I am. I think, is it the right thing? That's the question. But it's the Miami Dolphins. It's not like they're a stable organization who keeps their head coaches around. So, they lost a few draft picks trying to get Tom Brady and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like they're of sound mind. So I can see them, if it's another bad year, which I can see him being the scapegoat and bringing someone else in. But then it just leaves you that awkward position because they brought Mike McDaniels in to help Tua and to get the best out of Tua. And if Mike McDaniels can't, like Byron said a couple of years ago, it was a good year, but I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure what this team is, and I don't know where they can improve. And they, like I mentioned, the soft statement, what was said about the team, that never really went away, and I still don't know if that's being fixed. And with all the flashy players they had at the beginning, that could happen again. Like you said, if they manage to scheme stuff up and get the ball out fast, and they're scoring these points in September when it's however hot it is in South Beach at that point. Do I ever see them winning when it's cold in November, December? I just can't see it. I just can't see it with this team, this setup, and will Mike McDaniels get the chance to fully rebuild again? I'm going to say no.
I mean, we're lucky for them. They don't have to go to Buffalo. They only have to go to Buffalo in September, so that's a plus. We'll get into, I suppose, win totals and scheme shortly. Let's have a look at the last headline for Miami. Waller washes up on Miami Beach. Welcome to I should have sang that. Welcome to Miami. Tight end books trend and comes out of retirement in South Florida. Dolphins trade late round picks for tight end. Can he recapture his Raiders form? Waller at the Giants was a big disappointment, wasn't he? We were expecting a lot. He maybe just as he started to get going, he got hurt, didn't he, as well? Back in 2023, and then 2024, he dedicated his time to hip hop, I think. That was good. Love that, Byron. He dedicated time to hip hop. I don't remember his song. I can't remember if we're any good or not. No. Okay, it's the general consensus. So maybe coming back to the NFL is the right move. We've talked that a little bit about kind of what we're expecting out of him, maybe. I don't know if getting Waller in's the right move for the Dolphins. Suppose they were set on moving from Jonnu Smith. Probably got right time, trade him high. Great year last year. The odds of replicating it unlikely. Again, of one touchdown dependent and unlikely. But I mean, is this just again another sign of Miami? Do you really seem to have a plan? Making a move like this?
Doesn't seem like a team who has a plan, does it? To trade away your player and then the next day it's like, oh yeah, we've actually got Darren Waller out of retirement. It's like a wrestling move to me. Of like, what happened? Sorry, you brought who back? From when? The 90s? Oh wow, that's interesting. Feels like a Royal Rumble, Vince McMahon running the show. I have no idea if he's got juice. I don't hate the signing in itself because before he was in New York, I thought he was a really, really good tight end. He was, he could do it. Maybe having a year off has helped his body. Gronk came back after a year of retirement and won a Super Bowl, right, with Tampa Bay. He was certainly very good. I'm pretty sure that's the other one, the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I don't doubt it can be done. I don't even doubt that he might be okay. It's just a weird process. And I think they do need to, I mean, maybe it is Julian Hill who's already on the roster. Have someone who is more of that, fullback, tight end, crossover, someone who's going to come in and do the dirty work. That isn't going to be Darren Waller. I think Darren Waller you have to treat as your third wide receiver, really. Because that's what his skill set is. He's a very good catcher. I like him as a wide receiver, as a tight end catcher. But as an all-rounder tight end, he can't be coming in and doing the dirty work. He doesn't want to do it. He never exceeded at doing it. He was drafted as a wide receiver at Baltimore all those years ago. So, yeah, I don't hate it. Is he someone I would take late in a fantasy draft? Yeah, probably. Just on the upside that, he might get 10 touchdowns because he's big and the Dolphins generally aren't in the end zone. It's Tyreek and Jalen Waddle who aren't the biggest of guys. Devin Achan the same. So it's kind of like him and Westbrook Akine going to battle for them jump balls, maybe. So yeah, I wouldn't mind taking a shot on him in fantasy drafts late on as a second tight end if you have a big enough bench. But yeah, I don't think he's solving any issues. I think he's just going to be a useful player.
Yeah, I also remember as well, it was 2019, 2020 had the back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and then he's not been over 700 since. And bear in mind, he sat out 2024. Oh, retired, sorry. Yeah, he's not been over 700 yards in 3 consecutive seasons, and 2 of them were with the Raiders, and then he got traded. Like, it's been on the downward trend for quite a while now. So, yeah, interesting. We'll see how he goes. Let's move into the roster moves, the rest of free agency, and the draft for Miami. Yeah, I mean, anyone in particular that we've not touched on, we've not talked about, I suppose, the other side of the trade too much. Minka coming back, who was unhappy in the first place in Miami, which is why he left for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and we didn't get into it too much with Jimmy on our AFC North preview. I think there was some unhappiness with Minka and the Steelers mutually at the end of last season of him, not taking his leadership role seriously enough or not doing it well enough. I forget the exacts of it. But I remember that being a storyline at the end of last season in Pittsburgh. So I was surprised when he got traded because we hadn't heard anything recently, but I wasn't stunned, especially thinking back to that kind of like, it felt like there was some discontentment on both sides there. So, we'll see what we get from him. I think he's another player who, like Jalen Ramsey, he's still a good player, but he might be, he is on the decline of his career at this point. That's just that's how age works. There's very few who, get better and better into the 30s. It just is very rare. So, yeah. Those free agency ins is not exactly an inspiring list, is it?
No.
I think about Nick Westbrook Akine getting 7 catches, 7 touchdowns again this year.
And again, that's just another thing. It's just not going to repeat itself, is it? It's not one of those things that is likely to obviously to happen. So what did he have? Like 20 odd catches, 8 or 9 touchdowns for the Titans last year. It was, crazy really. But yeah, that's not likely to carry over. I'm very much looking forward to see Kenneth Grant in the NFL. First round out of Michigan. I was hoping when Miami took him at number 13, I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll, this is the move of starting to get physical, starting to build the trenches. They did draft the O-lineman as well. I'm not ready yet to try and, say this. I had
Jonah.
it on Jonah. We'll just go with Jonah. Savianina, I think, is where we're at, out of Arizona.
More eyes than Najee.
More eyes than thought I was going to say all that for the AFC West show. We could do both, excellent. So we'll see. But it needed more than that, I think. But I'm excited to see Grant. It should be a beast in the middle of the defensive line. But yeah, nothing else is really jumping out to me. So they've got Quinn Ewers. He's going to be kind of third behind Zach Wilson. I'm really struggling for much positivity about the Miami Dolphins. Sorry.
And obviously,
I do
losing Claes Campbell as well is big. I love Claes Campbell, and he would have been great for Kenneth Grant just to learn from him. But I'm guessing they brought him in to replace him. So should be exciting to see how he gets on. And so that defense front, like the actual line, looks pretty decent. If everyone can stay fit and back and healthy, so at least that's something positive for the Dolphins there.
Yeah, I suppose Sealer, Jalen Phillips, and if you keep Bradley Chubb fit, they've got some. They do have.
Chop Robinson had a great second half of the season.
Chop Robinson came on, I suppose, as well.
But it's just constantly getting the best out of them, and like Joe says there, I think the crucial thing is everyone's staying fit, and not happening too often.
Yeah. So right, let's move on. Win totals for the Miami Dolphins. This still 8.5. Where is 8.5 wins coming from? Over under 8.5 wins. Under 1 to 2 on. So I think Vegas leaning more on 8 or less. But you can get 8 to 5, so just short of 2 to 1 on. Over 8.5 wins. Where have you guys got Miami?
Yeah, I've got them 11 and 6, so I think they're going up. I'm at 4 and 13. Yeah.
I'm the same, 4 and 13. I think I've run it for a couple of times. I think I'm at 3 and 14 and 4 and 13. They do have 3 division games in the first 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got the Patriots at home, Bills away, Jets at home. They could conceivably win the 2 games against the Patriots at home and the Jets at home.
Yeah, and that Jets game, they're coming off a Thursday as well. So, like, the Bills is a short week. We're probably going to lose to the Bills anyway. You might as well do that on a short week. And then have a big rest before you play the Jets in what is a bigger game for them.
Yeah, that's fair.
I have them at 6 and 11. So, I've got them a few more wins. But, yeah, there's a few, toss-up games. But especially the other games, I feel like we can pick up. So, 6-11, but all under. And I'm guessing all missing the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the bets I looked at, I really, really liked, and I mentioned it on our Bets to the Future Part 2 episode a couple months ago. Under 6.5 at plus 170.
Yeah.
That is 17 to 10. So just short of 2 to 1. I like that. And like I say, I've got 4 and 13. You could probably go on, under 5.5, under 4.5. But I think under 6.5 is a safe one, and you get just short of 2 to 1 on it. So, really like that. Odds. Just over 2 to 1, 9 to 4 to make the playoffs, and 3 to 1 on to miss the playoffs. There's not a path, is there, surely, for the Dolphins to make the playoffs?
Not in the AFC, but I think there's a lot of good teams there, and they'll have to prove us all wrong to get 9 or 10 wins. But I can't see it.
Yeah, potentially be playing a lot of them teams who are being in the wild card race. Steelers late on, Bengals late on, Chargers potentially as well. They'd have to find a way to have a winning record in those games, and I think it's unlikely given where they're at. 6 to 1 to win the AFC East, 30 to 1 to win the AFC, and 90 to 1 to be crowned Super Bowl 60 champions in San Francisco. But there's anything tickling your fancy there, chaps?
No. I think the problem is being in this division, there's no one I would put the Bills is not a good enough odds, and everyone else I don't think they get. So that's a tricky one with this division.
I'm interested. Is there a winning margin market for divisions?
I don't think there is presently, but there probably will be.
There'll be one somewhere. That's why you get your value on the Bills, Joe. Win by 3, win by 4 games, or whatever. Let's move on. The New York Jets. What an interesting time it's been for the Jets. Fields of Dreams. Jets plant seeds for a new era. After 2 years of drama with Rodgers, Justin Fields brings hope and a whole new identity to Gang Green. What are the realistic expectations?
I think that's a very good question. Realistic expectations for the Jets. And for Justin Fields in himself, I suppose. It's a really tough one to answer. I don't know what a realistic expectation is. Going 500? Thereabouts? 8 and 9, 9 and 8. Is that realistic? Probably not. I think the bookies have them a little lower than that. I think just being a functional organisation for a season, not being a laughing stock and being trolled on McAfee every Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever day that comes out, would be nice. It's kind of how I feel would be a successful season for the Jets, or at least a realistic one.
Yeah, I just think just being a fun team to watch. I feel like it's just been a grind, and they had all the expectations with Rodgers 2 years ago, and the injury took him out. I felt sorry for the Jets then, and obviously last year Rodgers coming back and he wasn't at his best, and even though I think he played okay at the end of the season, they weren't a fun team to watch. So hopefully with Fields, but I am quite optimistic about the Jets. I think the team in as a whole, they've actually got a good squad, and I do like what they've done in the back office as well. But I feel like Fields could be one of them quarterbacks where he gives you hope quite a lot, and it's been to a few teams, and then it never reaches where you expect, and he just has a typical Justin Fields season. He started for the Steelers last year. I think he played okay. I think he had a decent year, but he wasn't wow, he's scoring all these points and going off, which you expected, similar to his Chicago days, except I think 1 year he had a great year. So I think, like Barry said, I think a lot of people have them, especially the bookies, have them fairly low down. I think just being competitive and, building on for the future, because I think they've got a great young team, a good young roster, and we'll see if Fields is there, to go forward. But I like that they went Justin Fields rather than, place like a Joe Flacco back in, in that. You might as well gamble that he might have a bounce back year and be exciting in New York.
Excellent. Cool. Let's move on. Headline number 2. Flight plan rewritten. Jets clear the deck. A full reset in the front office and a head coach with former Lions defensive coordinator and Jets great Aaron Glenn taking the seat in the cockpit. So many plain puns. Aaron Glenn in as head coach. What do we make of? Glenn. He obviously had a couple of great years as the Lions defensive coordinator. How do we think it's going to go with Aaron Glenn in charge?
Again, I think it's hard to tell for sure because, so much we don't know, but I'm pretty optimistic. I think Aaron Glenn's a really sensible, he's a good teacher, he's a good football person. I think he's been around the game, obviously, a long time. The Lions defense over the last couple of years has been fantastic. Even, towards the end of last season, they were picking players off the street on Wednesday, starting them on Sundays, and there was some drop off, but not like you'd expect it to be. I think Glenn has earned a rightful amount of trust in him going in and being competent. I like the hires he's made around him as well. Tanner Engstrand, the former Lions passing game coordinator the last couple of years, he's been in the Lions staff for a few years in the offensive role. Not to say that Ben Johnson doesn't deserve wild credit for everything that happened in Detroit, and Dan Campbell, to be fair, he sets the foundation. But Tanner Engstrand has been there. He has been studying at the same place as Ben Johnson with Dan Campbell. And Steve Wilkson as DC, very experienced, someone who has been a head coach, someone who I think will be able to assist Aaron Glenn in all of that work. So I like what they've done. I think, like you said, cleared the deck, new GM as well. So I'm not going to say, they're going to win the Super Bowl this year, but I think it's room for optimism. I think it's all steps in the right direction.
Yeah, I think with the press conference, he was probably the head coach who impressed me the most. Just coming in there, obviously being a former Jet as well. He knows the situation, not that they're a laughing stock, but they have been the last decade or so. So he knows and he wants to turn it around. I liked how he handled the Rodgers situation where he felt like he was the first grown up in the room to be like, no, this is a Jets organization, not the Aaron Rodgers organization. So I think I liked what he did there, and just who knows what's going to happen going forward? If he actually is going to be successful, and we might be here in 2 years and being like, why the hell did I hire him? And typical Jets fashion. But it just didn't. It wasn't like a failure of a press conference where you're like, oh, this is looking. Because what was the former came from Miami, went to the Jets?
Adam Gase.
Yeah, like his press conference, you were like, Jesus, this is rough, and you could. It looked like he felt like it was like a disaster, and again, the Jets were a laughing stock straight away. So I think he actually presented himself really well, and he seems like a player's coach, a bit like Dan Campbell, where people actually want to play for him and play for the Jets, and that's how you want to see, in the building, going to defensive coach again after Salah is always interesting because they usually like flip, but I think he was the right hire, the right man to hopefully make the Jets team, be interesting and like you said, not a McAfee every week.
Yeah, we will see. Number 3 headline for the New York Jets. Cabin crew sticking around in Gotham. Jesus Christ. Sauce and Wilson are officially first class as Jets spend $250 million air miles on contract extensions. Is this a sign of confidence in the rebuild? More a sign from those guys that they're prepared to kind of stick around and not, they would be welcome on, I'm pretty sure, every other NFL roster, right? But yeah, is this a sign of confidence in them that they kind of believe in what's been put in place this offseason, that they're willing to commit?
You certainly hope so. I mean, there was talk of Garrett Wilson wanting out at the end of last season if Aaron Rodgers was sticking around, which I think you can understand. And yeah, I mean, they've signed it. They've got the money early as they could, really. So it makes sense.
Idea,
yeah, it's great, isn't it? I think it just makes sense from all angles. The Jets pay up and get their young stars under contract for the following years, which instills faith in the organization, but also, it's just a good financial decision as well. If Garrett Wilson is what they think he is, and what I think everyone thinks he is, the only problem Garrett Wilson's had in his career is there's no one throwing the ball. I'm not sure that gets 100% better this year. Justin Fields has shown he could target a wide receiver in DJ Moore before, really successfully. And I'm not sure there's anyone on this roster who's going to contend too much for targets with Garrett Wilson, so that bodes well. And Sauce Gardner maybe suffered a little too much by being too good as a rookie. That he's kind of...
Little musical interlude there. Cheers,
Sauce
Joe.
Gardner music coming in. Apparently we weren't being saucy enough for Joe. Sauce Gardner, I think, maybe suffered by being too good as a rookie, that he kind of has looked not as good in future years on the back of it. And it's he's still very, very good. It's just Derek Stingley's come and shone as well. Not necessarily... He probably has outshone him a little in the last couple of years, but it's because they're both really good. It's not because Sauce Gardner's now suddenly the 50th best corner in the league. He's still a top 10 corner. And the price doesn't go down on good young players, Jerry. I'm speaking to Jerry here. I think it's just a great decision to do all around, ultimately.
Yeah, and you look at that draft, because obviously they got drafted together, and Jermaine Johnson was drafted as well, and I think they got his 50th extension just because of the injury last year. I obviously got Breece Hall in that draft as well. So I'm curious what they're going to do with Breece Hall. There's still rumors, if he's going to be trading, and probably if you are going to trade him, you'd want to do it now instead of waiting for another year. But they got Sherwood on a new contract, so they're keeping the good players, and that's what good teams do. They've got some good young players. Obviously, they paid Quinn Williams a few years ago. Will McDonald, is he going to take a step up? And we'll be talking about the offensive line and some of the other players they got in. I think it's they're showing that they've got confidence in this young team, and they're keeping their best players instead of just letting them out the door. And when you offer Sauce Gardner the most money for a cornerback, he's going to take it. So I think they've done well. And I think how they've structured it, I was reading about this. I think the next 2 years they're actually not on that big of a roster hit. I think it's 2 or 3% each player with their cap hit, and it's not until later on where if Justin Fields doesn't work out and they get a rookie quarterback year after, then all that money will come into place when you've got a rookie quarterback. So I think they've been smart as well with how they've structured the contract. So big tick for the Jets, which we don't always say every offseason.
Yeah, I'm worried when the New York Jets are managing contract situations better than your own franchise. That's worrying times. Let's move on to headline number 4. Last time we'll mention that, I promise. Jets building jumbo O-line. Jets draft Missouri tackle Armand Membu at 7 to pair with Olu Fashanu with 2 7.47s at the end of the line. Could this young O-line be the best in the league? So it's the two tackles, first-round picks. Vera Tucker, they've got a first-round pick invested in from 2021. Tittman, the centre, second-round pick, and they've got John Simpson in currently at left guard. But that's 4 of the 5 that they've drafted, all young, 3 of them first-round picks. I think this O-line is going to be really, really good. I'm really excited. I think this could be a big, big year for this line. Fields could have a big comeback rushing-wise. Might harm Breece Hall a little bit. I think they could be a really good unit.
Yeah, I mean, tough to argue with, though. I think ultimately, Alan Memby was my favourite tackle in the draft. I still think New England should have took him at 4, but, they had a different idea. Ola Fashanu, was good last year. Big lad as well. So, next in the league, I think, might be a year or two away at minimum. But I think certainly the building blocks are definitely there. I think both tackles, top 10 picks, I think it's just smart team building.
Yeah, that Memby looks good because especially there's such a need at right tackle. So I think it was a slam dunk kind of pick there. So we could be in a year or two just saying, the Jets have got the best O-line. I think just how young they are and how good they were in the first year and being all there together. I think sky's the limit. So for this Jets team. So. And I think Fields needs that as well. So I think they're perfect. And if they do get a rookie quarterback in the next year or two, then it should also be set. Nothing's worse than getting a young quarterback and having a disastrous O-line. So if it all works out, again, smart decisions by the Jets. Got this positivity here.
Wow. Excellent. I have one thing. It's slightly unrelated, but just because we were talking about I suppose owners not maybe doing the right things, and we are on about the Jets. If you're a Crystal Palace fan, should you be extremely worried that Woody Johnson has just put 200 million quid in or whatever it is?
Well, isn't he going to be like his grandsons who's played FIFA quite a bit? His sons who are going to be telling who to pick and all that kind of stuff. Or Football Manager, whichever which way.
Yeah. I mean, just sidebar. I took Palace 10-1. Was it 10-1 or 12-1 to get relegated after they won the FA Cup, just because Europe, small squad, etc. Now Woody Johnson's come and put his money in.
What's it, 1-10 now?
I think he's down to 7-1 Palace to get relegated. So you'll assume they're going to lose a couple of players as well. But anyway, sidebar. It's just an interesting thought. Do not let him anywhere near Selhurst Park. Basically, is the plan if you are a Palace fan. Right, let's move on. Ins and outs. Fridge, we've touched on a few bits. Anyone in particular that we're excited about that we've not really touched on so far that can, again, be a big part of the Jets 2025 season?
I think they should hope Mason Taylor is. Early second-round pick, tight end, son of Jason Taylor. And again, you look at the non-Garrett Wilson pass catchers in that offense. Josh Reynolds, Alan Lazard, Tyler Johnson, Jeremy Ruckert, Smart Stone, Zach Kuntz. They better hope Mason Taylor can hit the ground running because I don't think I said a single player that you'd like, oh, yeah, that's a real good second pass catcher. Breece Hall, I guess, is a default one. But, a genuine pass catcher who's going to be working downfield, they could really do with Mason Taylor coming out the gates hot. I really like him as a prospect, so I don't have any huge doubts that he can. I don't think you should really expect much in terms of fantasy from any Jets player that isn't Field, Breece Hall, or Garrett Wilson. I think they're going to be very concentrated in their distribution. Maybe Braylon Allen as a backup to Breece Hall, because I think whoever, with that running back room and Justin Fields taking, pressure away in the running game, whoever the running back is, I think will be successful. If it's Breece Hall, all the better, because he's by far the best one of them, in my opinion. But I think they could really use Mason Taylor hitting the ground running.
Yeah, it's interesting, Taylor, because obviously he went for it too. I thought maybe Arroyo was going to go ahead of him, but it's tough being a tight end for LSU because they just have these electric wide receivers like, Chase, Jefferson, obviously plenty more, but recently where it's tough to be a pass catching tight end in that offense because as I say, it's a lot of just air, a lot of downfield, big, these, elite wide receivers. So you very rarely get a look in. So I'm interested to see how he'll take to the NFL.
Yeah, and I like some of the other picks. The defense tackle, he'll go straight in. And I'm curious with the wide receiver, Aaron Smith. Obviously, behind Garrett Wilson, it's Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard. So I'm curious because he's obviously a speed freak, hasn't got the greatest hands. So, but will he get his opportunity in this team as being the speed burner? So I think, he could be good, and Thomas as well, just because they lost DJ Reed, who was that was a great 1-2 partnership with Sauce, so he might need to step up and maybe not start straight away, but he might get some snaps going on at the end of the season. So yeah, I think there would be some, especially the first 4 could see some playing time for this Jets team.
The Aaron Smith was interesting because I think not to compare him to what could you get something similar that Fields got out of DJ Moore, but what they did with DJ Moore a lot was a lot of screens and line scrimmage stuff, wasn't it? With Fields and Moore in Chicago, Aaron Smith, that kind of player. So I wonder if that will feel right for Fields, and you'll get a lot of targets as a result. And if they can utilize him, if he's a track runner, Aaron Smith, that they can utilize that and get him in space and hit some home runs. Excellent. Right, let's move on to the odds for the New York Jets. 5.5 wins, over under 5.5. I find the gap between the Jets line and the Dolphins line insane. Because I think the Jets are better than Miami.
Totally agree. Yeah. I have the Jets at 10-7, tied with the Patriots for second in the division. Might be a little rich, I know, but again, I just realized I'm looking at the Dolphins schedule. I do have the Jets at 10-7. I'm like, why don't I see any Jets on this page? That doesn't include them winning some games that are going to be close on paper. Like I haven't beaten the Cowboys at home. I haven't beaten the Broncos in Tottenham. I think it'll be in London anyway, wherever the stadium is.
Yeah.
So those could be 2 swings where you end up on 8 wins. 5.5 is low though. Like that, I think that has to be name recognition. Like. I just don't think you look at this roster and think this is a 5-win team. Second
half of the schedule is nice, I think, relative in terms of. I mean, outside of the Ravens, you've got teams like the Browns, you've got the Patriots, the Dolphins, the Jags. They might be good, they might not be. The Saints, the Patriots get all kind of winnable games, I guess. So
and it's a good time to play the Bills in Week 18.
Yeah, you might get.
You have to play them twice. You might as well get, if one of them's in Week 18. That seems like a positive. I just think the roster's really solid. Like, got really good young players. Like we said, the O-line's really good. Justin Fields is obviously a big question mark, but he was 4-2 last year on a team that's built pretty similarly, if not, obviously higher end pass rushers. I will give them that. But I think the build is similar, and I think the expectations around Justin Fields will probably be pretty similar. You're not going to expect him to be hero ball, but, I would trust Tanner Engström sight unseen over Arthur Smith as an offensive play caller. Like, I don't trust Arthur Smith to do it. So, 10 is just maybe a little high, but I think over 5.5, I think it's an easy pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've got 6 and 11. That's where I've got them,
Yeah, I've got 8 and 9, same as the Patriots. So, and flip between 7 or 8, but going 8.
Quite the stretch we've got here between. We've got 6 and 8, 10. Interesting.
I think Joe's probably more likely to be right than me or you.
Yeah,
it's kind of the way. I realize looking at my own thing, I've been moving a bit a little too overconfident, but it's what I've done. So I can't wait for Week 1 though. They're hosting the Steelers. I think that's going to be a dynamite matchup.
Excellent. I'll put that now. That will be the Sky Sports game at 6:00 on.
Could be.
Assuming Sky still haven't signed the deal yet for the coverage in the UK. Which is insane. Anyway, to make the playoffs, 19-4, so just short of 5-1, and no heavily odds on to miss the playoffs, 7-1 on. If you've got them at 10-7, did you have them getting in?
Yeah, they're in on a tiebreaker of the Pats and the Broncos. I don't know what those tiebreakers are and how they would play out in real life, but I'd much rather take essentially 5-1 than 1-7 on a team I think can hit double-digit wins.
Yeah, that's fair. Excellent.
Yeah, I like that. I like the odds as well.
Yeah. Excellent. Right. 18-1 to win. Is that right?
Yeah.
This blew me away. Like the difference between the Jets and Dolphins for the division. It was like 3 times as much.
Right.
It's an annoying one. So you go with your list,
Yeah, 18-1. We'll see. I don't want to spoil my bets earlier on, but I just the Jets are better than the Dolphins is my overall take, and it plays into my bet later on.
Yeah.
I said later on we're going to talk through him in a minute, but yeah, 18-1 to win the division is insane. Who have we got? How many teams are longer odds to win the division? Someone was 30-1, weren't they, to win the division? Is that Cleveland, maybe?
I'd guess that was Cleveland, yeah. Maybe the Saints as well, but I'd guess Cleveland will be the longest.
Yeah, we've not. It's one of the
episodes. The Ravens.
It's one of the episodes we've done.
I think it'll be the Browns.
Yeah, I think it might be the Browns.
But yeah, I'm not backing the Jets on any of these. I'd be tempted with the Super Bowl for $5 on it at 250-1, truthfully.
Yeah. The Browns and the Giants are 30-1 to win their respective.
That makes sense, yeah. But I don't hate the 18-1 to win the division. I don't think they will. But 18-1 is a obscene price, in my opinion. Like, they don't need that much to go right. Like, the Bills to fall off.
The 13-14 wins, though, they're going to have to be 5-6 games
short. That's what you mentioned. If Allen does get injured, then
yeah,
that 18-1 would obviously we don't want that. But if you get
or they just lose a couple of stupid games, and I have the Jets at 10 wins. I don't have them at 7. So like, is it crazy that it could sneak the division? Probably, but I don't think it's an 18-1 bet. I think it's like a 7 or 8-1 bet.
Yeah,
maybe 10-1. Like, this is one that like you had the same reaction I've had every time I load up the divisions of like, is that the actual price? Like, I just don't understand it. It's annoying that I just don't think it's going to happen. So 18-1 is still an 18-1 loser.
Yeah.
But I think it's an incredible value.
Yeah, 80-1. Seems great. 60-1 to win the AFC and 250-1 to win Super Bowl 60. Yeah, don't think it's going to be a repeat of Super Bowl 3. Sadly, for the Jets. Best bets time. We've got to the end of the episode. So I'll just play that through actually. So my bets are actually they're both weirdly around the Jets. But yeah, exact order for the AFC East. Bills, Patriots, Jets, Dolphins. The Jets are better than the Dolphins. I think they're probably about the level where the Patriots are going to be, but I think the Patriots might just sneak them. So yeah, Bills, Patriots, Jets, Dolphins, the finishing order of the division. 11-2, so 5.5-1. Yeah, I like that. Like 1 plus 550. Yeah, I think the Bills are going to be at least 3 or 4 games clear. The Patriots could have an outside run at a wild card spot. I think I said earlier, didn't I? I had them at 6 wins, but that's unrealistic. I think maybe closer to 9. Jets, again, somewhere closer to 500. I think the Dolphins is going to be a disaster. So I like 11-2 on that. And this might be one of my favourite bets of the series so far. Will McDonald, 10 plus sacks, 8-5. I was tempted to go 14-1, 15 plus, but I've just gone, with 10. I just think Will McDonald is an absolute beast. His progression and the rate is improving. I think it's phenomenal. He's harnessing his freakish athletic ability and turning it with some technique as well. He had 10.5 sacks on the season last year. I'm fully expecting him to replicate it. I still might go with the 15 plus sacks at 14-1. I think just for that extra leap, it's insane value. They play the Dolphins twice, and we just talked about how the mess of what this Dolphins O-line might be. There could be 3 or 4 sacks in him in those games for him. So, yeah, I think he's heading into year 3. I think he could have a scary, scary season in terms of numbers, and just have a bit of a monster year. But yeah, I've gone 10 plus. I really do like the 15 plus though at 14-1.
Nice, that's a nice price, that, yeah. Oh, these are mine. So I have the Jets over 7.5 wins, Dolphins under 8.5 wins at 3-1. Again, I have the Jets winning 10 games, so I have them reasonably comfortably over 7.5, even if they got 8 and 9 at a losing record. Dolphins, I don't know how they get to 8 wins, so we've covered that till the cows come. I think 3-1's a really nice price there. And then this is another Jets Dolphin double up here. Fails to go over 25-50 passing yards. He's done it once before. I just kind of think, this whole line, he's going to have more time to do it than ever before. And then I've got also Jalen Waddle to go over 4.5 receiving touchdowns. Again, I just think the offense is an issue in Miami, but like getting the ball to Jalen Waddle hasn't been the biggest one in their career. He's traditionally got, comfortably over that number. Even last year, he got 2 last year, but prior to that, he got 6, 8, and 4. I think he's much more likely to bounce back and go over 4 than he is to go for 2 again. So that's a 3-1 double on. Fields hitting what I think is a pretty achievable one if he starts all 17 games. And yeah, Jalen Waddle, same. If he starts all 17 games, I think over 4.5 receiving touchdowns is pretty doable, both 3-1.
Excellent. Joe?
Cool, yeah. So I've got just up at the Jets over 6.5 wins, 23-20, so just over evens. 2 of us had them comfortably over. So I do like that. I might have a look at 7.5 just to see how it bumps it up. And then there's a new odds on Bet365, which is just I think appeared in the last few weeks, like the leading touchdown scorers for each team. And I've got Travion Henderson to be the leading touchdown scorer for New England at 5-2. He's currently second behind Stevenson, but compared to a lot of other teams, as the main running back is usually odds on. But I do like that Travion Henderson. I think he's going to take that number 1 running back position and get the most TDs. So I do like it at 5-2.
Excellent. Good stuff. Yeah, I like that. I think he's going to beat streets ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. He's had his opportunities, hasn't he? So yeah, like that. Excellent. Gents, that wraps up the AFC East. Done in the books. That's 5 down, 3 to go. We're in the process of organising the remainder of the episodes for our division previews. We'll have some cracking guests. We've got a bit of a bonus episode coming as well. We interview the founder and head coach of United Kicking, Brad Charalambous. So, interesting one. Look out for that one. Real insightful in terms of the growth of, kickers, punters, and long snappers. Don't forget those guys that are going out from the UK and Europe to play college football in America. So, keep your eyes peeled for that one. As always, don't forget to go to follow. If you're listening and not following yet, which would be strange, but if you're not, please make sure you are. Go give us a follow. Good Teams Win, Great Teams cover over on Spotify. You can also get the audio version of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Overcast. You can get the video version, of course, on YouTube, and follow along on all the channels: Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, at GTW_GTC. And we'll see you next week for another division preview episode.